The contract expires in 2 weeks. I'm planning to divorce Preston Sterling." As she spoke, Cecilia Lane stared at the video playing on her iPad for the 100th time. In the video, her husband gazed intently at his childhood sweetheart, speaking with deep affection. "Lydia, I still can't forget you. Will you come back to me?" As the words fell, he leaned in to kiss her red lips. And Julian, the son Cecilia had risked her life to carry and birth, was shouting loudly, "Daddy, I want Auntie Lydia to be my mommy." Her resolve to leave became firmer than ever. On the other end of the phone, Beatrice Sterling remained silent for a moment before advising caution. "You need to think this through. If you divorce, you'll not only have to give up your current job, but with the prenup, you won't get much in terms of assets." Cecilia replied without hesitation, "I know. Since the marriage certificate is fake anyway, I'll leave with nothing. Don't worry." Beatrice tried to keep her. "If you insist on divorce, custody definitely won't go to you. Can you bear never seeing the child again? I know you love Preston. With the child there, he'll eventually turn his heart to you." Even Beatrice, who she rarely saw, knew she loved Preston Sterling deeply. Yet Preston was convinced she was a calculating woman who only wanted the glory of being a wealthy wife. Bitterness spread in Cecilia's heart, but she remained unmoved. "Julian is a Sterling by blood. I trust you and Preston won't mistreat him, so when I leave, I don't plan on coming back." "Fine. I will arrange for your departure as agreed." Hearing the affirmative answer, Cecilia finally let out a sigh of relief, but the acidity in her heart wouldn't subside. Her relationship with Preston Sterling was a sin born of profit 5 years ago. Back then, when Preston and his beloved Lydia Lovelace were deeply in love, Lydia suddenly married an American tycoon. Preston, refusing to believe Lydia would abandon him, chased after her, but got into a car accident on the way to the airport, remaining in a coma for a month. Beatrice forbade him from finding Lydia again and made him watch the video of her wedding. Preston gave up on himself in agony, drinking heavily and street racing, becoming gaunt as if he didn't value his own life. Afraid her son would die, Beatrice spotted Cecilia, who bore a slight resemblance to Lydia, and approached her with a contract. She asked Cecilia to find a way to keep Preston alive and stay with him for 5 years. In exchange, Cecilia would not only have a smooth career path for 5 years, but would also be provided with a top-tier medical team for a liver transplant. Cecilia had a hereditary liver disease, but she had grown up in an orphanage. The hard life gave her a strong desire to live, so she agreed. After signing the contract with Beatrice, she began to mimic Lydia's style of dress, creating various chance encounters, and even went so far as to shield Preston from danger during another near accident. Preston was actually a very devoted man. Cecilia once thought she couldn't meet the requirements, but after she blocked a car for him and recovered from a fracture, Preston suddenly agreed to be with her. At that time, Cecilia didn't think much of it, assuming her sincerity had finally moved him. Although under Beatrice's arrangement, they obtained a fake marriage certificate, Cecilia thought she was happy. A month after the wedding, Cecilia learned that Preston agreed to be with her not because he was moved by her persistence, but because that day, Lydia had announced her pregnancy on social media. Cecilia told herself to focus and just fulfill the contract. But when she got pregnant, Preston was very happy. He stayed with her for days on end. His joy and his arrangements for the child's future all seemed so real. Plus, Beatrice had found a matching liver for her, so Cecilia gave birth to the child. She thought living a lukewarm life with Preston like this would be fine, but all of this was shattered 3 months ago. Lydia Lovelace divorced and came back. Not only did Preston quickly rekindle his old flame with her, but even her biological son was swiftly swayed to the other side, coming to hate her, his mother. At first, Cecilia couldn't understand how her 5 years of companionship couldn't occupy a single spot in Preston's heart. The moment Lydia returned, Cecilia's existence became a mistake. She had questioned him, she had broken down, but it was all to no avail. Slowly, her heart felt like it was soaked in salt water, sinking uncontrollably, deeper and deeper. Now, only disappointment remained. "What are you looking at?" A man's cold voice suddenly came. Cecilia realized the father and son had returned. She gathered her thoughts, turned off the iPad screen, and answered casually, "A sales assistant pitching products. Where did you go? Why are you back so late?" As Preston got closer, Cecilia immediately smelled a very soft perfume on him that didn't belong to him. It was Lydia's favorite scent. Business dinner. Preston loosened his tie, his response cold. Cecilia watched him lie to her face without blinking. She didn't probe further but looked at her son. Julian, dinner parties aren't suitable for children. If Daddy has business next time, call me and I'll pick you up, okay? Julian followed behind his father like a little adult. He was young and couldn't hide his emotions. Right now, his face was full of impatience toward his mother. I wanted to go with Dad. Mom, can you stop being so controlling? Cecilia moved her lips, her heart feeling increasingly desolate. She had no parents, so after having Julian, she poured all her effort into him. She not only loved him but was also strict, hoping he would grow up well. But her forbidding him from eating fried chicken, stopping him from staying up late to play games, and making him read books and practice handwriting under Lydia's instigation and Preston's permissiveness all became her faults. Cecilia tried to correct his thinking, but every time the result was the opposite. If it were the past, she would have nagged a bit, but today, hearing Julian personally say he wanted Lydia to be his mother, Cecilia didn't want to care anymore. After changing his clothes, Julian threw another tantrum. Mom, what do you do at home all day? You didn't even clean up my toys. He might have forgotten that when he left with Preston this morning. He specifically emphasized that she wasn't allowed to touch them. Cecilia glanced at him and simply called a maid over to clean up. She didn't want to do everything personally anymore. You just know how to order servants around. You're not like a mom at all. Auntie Lydia is way more gentle and considerate. I wish Auntie Lydia was my mom. These words entered Cecilia's ears one by one. She leaned back against the sofa with her eyes closed, saying nothing. Julian's smartwatch rang. His eyes lit up, and he ran to Cecilia holding a pile of things. This is the craft assignment from my teacher. You finish gluing it for me. I'm going to find Dad. Julian put down the things, issued the order, and ran off. Cecilia opened her eyes. It was a bead mosaic art piece. The size wasn't large, but the beads were tiny, estimated to be over 1,000 pieces, requiring color-coded pasting. It would take at least the entire night. In the past, Cecilia would help, but she would drag her son to do it with her, teaching him to do his own work and not to put off today's tasks. Now, she didn't move. About half an hour later, Preston came out. He was holding his phone, looking down at the screen with a soft expression. Cecilia rubbed her throbbing temples and called out to him, Preston Sterling, are you free tomorrow? What is it? Preston looked at her, his face cold. I have something very important to discuss with you. Even though she had decided to leave the father and son regarding the contract, Cecilia subconsciously wanted to avoid the child. Why aren't you replying to me? The cheerful voice of his childhood sweetheart came from the receiver. Cecilia could tell Preston had lowered the volume, but she still heard it clearly. Preston immediately looked at his phone. In response to Cecilia, he nodded casually, agreeing. Watching the man enter the kitchen, Cecilia got up and went to the guest bedroom. When Preston returned to the room at night and didn't see Cecilia in the master bedroom, he just felt she was throwing a tantrum again and went to bed annoyed. The next day, Cecilia was woken up by noise. She put on her slippers and opened the door in her pajamas. She immediately saw Lydia Lovelace in the living room. Julian, who should have been at school, was cheering around her. Yay, Auntie Lydia is the best. I've wanted to go to that competition for so long, but Mom never lets me go. She's always like that. Such a wet blanket, Julian finished shouting just as he completed a spin. Seeing his mother at the guest bedroom door, he lifted his chin somewhat boastfully. Dad said I can skip school today so Auntie Lydia can take me to the Marine World competition. Cecilia knew it was a sand pit theme park created inside the mall. She felt it was full of bacteria, so she hadn't let Julian go. But, a wet blanket? She glanced sideways at the corner of the living room where she had meticulously set up equipment identical to the theme park, just smaller in scale. She found it laughable. She couldn't even get angry anymore, only numbness remained. She nodded expressionlessly. Go ahead. Lydia looked at her apologetically. Cecilia, why don't we go together? It must be boring for you to be home alone. Cecilia's refusal was on the tip of her tongue. No, I don't want that, Julian yelled loudly. I don't want to go with her. She'll just say this is dirty and that is bad. It's so annoying, Auntie Lydia, let's not go with her. His second sentence was noticeably less aggressive than the first, carrying a hint of spoiled whining. "Kids just love to play. Don't take it to heart," Lydia said, looking at the handsome man who had just come out after changing clothes. Her expression softened even more. "Well, Cecilia, I'll take Julian out to play. Don't be unhappy." Hearing this, Preston immediately looked at Cecilia. He didn't say anything, but his eyes clearly conveyed a message. "Lydia is working hard to help you with the child. What are you unhappy about?" Cecilia found it ironic. She hadn't said a single word, yet everything was her fault. She didn't defend herself. Like an insignificant servant, she just stood at the guest bedroom door. Preston went to take Julian's hand. "Let's go." Julian held his dad's hand with one hand and Lydia's with the other, walking away happily. Anyone seeing their backs would call them a perfect family of three. Cecilia blinked her slightly sore eyes, went back to the room to wash up, changed clothes, and went out too. She went to the orphanage. If there was anyone left in this city she couldn't let go of, it was the orphanage director. The director was a woman with half-gray hair but a very kind heart. Hearing Cecilia say she was getting a divorce, she asked nothing. She just held Cecilia's hand and comforted her. "If you've made a decision, then walk forward steadily. Don't look back." Cecilia nodded. The mood that had been low since making the decision finally lifted. She had received a liver transplant and now possessed the healthy body she had dreamed of. What she was giving up were just superficial things. She had wisdom and vision. Changing cities, she could live very well. "By the way, Serenity asked about you 2 days ago. That child really likes you. Do you?" The director hesitated. "Do you still want to adopt her?" Serenity was a little girl Cecilia saw at the orphanage a year ago. She was tiny and timid. It was said her father had an accident at a construction site, and her mother, while seeking justice, fell during a scuffle and died of a brain hemorrhage. Cecilia felt pity and thought of adopting her. She discussed it with Preston, proposing they raise a daughter. Preston agreed without much hesitation. But when Cecilia was handling the paperwork, Preston was always busy here and there, dragging it out. Eventually, she got tired, and it was left unsettled. Actually, he wasn't too busy to run to the civil affairs office with her a few times. His mind was just entirely on Lydia. After chatting with the director for a while, Cecilia felt relieved. On her way back, passing by the mall, she immediately saw Julian playing happily with Lydia behind the glass. And Preston, the man who was somewhat of a germaphobe in front of her, now showed no disgust for the sand in the theme park. He half squatted beside Lydia, protecting her, afraid some child might not see her and bump into her. Cecilia drifted into thought. Shortly after she gave birth, she had days like this with Preston. At that time, as a new mother, she was afraid of not doing well. Coupled with postpartum discomfort, she was always anxious and couldn't sleep all night. Preston had stayed by her side just as patiently, coaxing the child while comforting her, saying that no matter what she did, she was Julian's mother, and he believed in her. "Congratulations to Julian Sterling for winning first place. You are amazing, kid. Can I ask why you are so amazing?" The host's voice came through the microphone, pulling Cecilia's thoughts back. She saw Julian holding the microphone, his eyes shining as he looked at Preston and Lydia standing side by side offstage. Proudly and without hesitation, he said, "Because my daddy and mommy are amazing too, so I'm amazing," he called Lydia mommy. Cecilia laughed out loud, tears flashing in her eyes. Fortunately, she had already decided to give up on Julian. Otherwise, hearing this now, how painful would it be? Cecilia took a deep breath, feeling more and more that her abandonment was wise and correct. The host praised Julian for being a polite baby and commented that Preston and Lydia, one handsome and one beautiful, were a perfect match. "Does Julian have the confidence to win the next round?" Julian nodded repeatedly. Cecilia didn't want to watch anymore. She turned to leave. "Cecilia," Lydia's somewhat puzzled voice came over. Cecilia wanted to pretend she didn't hear, but Lydia called her even louder. "Cecilia, you're here perfect. Julian has one more game to finish." "You do it." As she spoke, she had already come forward and pulled Cecilia inside. "No need." Cecilia tried to pull her hand back. Her refusal was cut off by Lydia, who spoke faster. "Actually, you should have been the one doing these games, but you seemed busy, so I substituted for a bit. But it's not too late for you to join now." She spoke frankly, as if that were the fact. She bent down and patted Julian's head. Juju, let mommy play the last game with you, okay? Julian's expression had turned disgusted the moment he saw Cecilia. Hearing Lydia's words, he reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. I don't want to play with her, make her leave, who asked her to come here. Did you secretly install a tracker on my phone? He glared viciously at Cecilia. Cecilia felt this son was a stranger, opening his mouth just to insult her. She wanted to say something, but her mind was filled with scenes of countless times she received no response and was ignored. She shut her mouth again. Cecilia, I'll have the driver take you to the jewelry store next door to browse. Preston stood up, intentionally or unintentionally blocking Lydia. The host had just praised the three of them. Now that the legitimate wife was out, was he afraid her presence would make people point out Lydia as a mistress? Cecilia saw through Preston's petty thoughts. She turned her head to look at Lydia, who had started the trouble and was now being protected. She called me in, didn't she? She hadn't wanted to come in at all. She was just tired and didn't want to argue anymore, but that didn't mean she was willing to be bullied arbitrarily. Preston frowned, lowering his voice. Don't throw a tantrum here. It's rare for Julian to be this happy. She was throwing a tantrum. In what word was she throwing a tantrum? In an instant, Cecilia understood where Julian learned to twist black and white. The game is about to start. If you don't go, it'll be too late. Cecilia, hurry up and take Julian over there. I'll wait outside, Lydia said, walking out. As she stepped over the knee-high fence, her body swayed. Preston quickly went to support her. Lydia, what's wrong? Julian ran over too. Lydia frowned, obviously in pain, but seeing Julian, she smiled. Juju, go play the game with mommy, okay? You promised me you'd win the prize for me today. Julian looked back at Cecilia, then at Lydia. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. Cecilia listened to Julian urging her to go on stage and let out a deep breath. Fine, she would play with him once. It would be the last time. The game was walking a single plank bridge to transport items from the other side. Cecilia's balance wasn't great, so she was slow. Julian kept rushing her. Seeing others about to finish while he hadn't, meaning he wouldn't get the reward, he got angry. After Cecilia stepped onto the bridge, he deliberately stood on the board on this side and jumped. Cecilia was walking carefully. The sudden shaking made her fall directly off the bridge. Being a children's playground, the bridge wasn't high, but there were many hard blocks below. Cecilia felt a sharp pain in her calf. What bad luck, it's all your fault, you made me lose the prize. Julian ran over, cursed a sentence, and went straight to Lydia. When Cecilia came out, she heard Lydia comforting Julian, saying it didn't matter and they could come back next time. Seeing her, Preston frowned deeply. How could you not even outrun a child? Cecilia was about to speak when Lydia stood up and pulled a muscle in her calf, letting out a soft cry. Preston looked over immediately. I'll take you to the hospital. He picked Lydia up directly and walked out. Julian grabbed Lydia's purse and followed. No one paid attention to Cecilia. She bent down to lift her pant leg. It was already bruised purple, but the pain in her leg was less than 1/10 of the pain in her heart. Cecilia walked slowly out of the mall and found Preston's car was still there. She was puzzled. The window rolled down, and Preston urged her, "Aren't you getting in?" Cecilia looked at Julian sitting in the passenger seat. She opened the rear door and saw Lydia with one leg lying across the seat. "Where do I sit?" Cecilia asked. Lydia immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, my leg doesn't seem to bend well. Maybe I should take a taxi to the hospital." She propped herself up as if to get out. "Stop nonsense. If you move around, it'll get worse." Preston scolded her lightly and looked at Julian. "I don't want her to hold me." Preston's expression turned sour. Cecilia was truly exhausted by their games. She slammed the car door shut. "I'll take a taxi." Preston hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll have the driver pick you up." Before Cecilia could respond, amidst Lydia's cries of pain, he started the engine. Watching the car speed away, Cecilia had to admit her heart still ached. Fortunately, she had decided to go far away. Returning home, Cecilia went straight to the master bedroom. She asked the maid for several large cardboard boxes and began packing everything that belonged to her. Preston didn't return until 10 o'clock at night, alone. Cecilia just turned her head to look at him once and asked nothing. Preston, on the other hand, felt somewhat guilty and actively explained, "Lydia twisted her leg quite badly. I let Julian stay there to keep her company." Perhaps because she was too quiet today, Preston wasn't used to it and rarely said a few more words. I know you're worried about Julian, but he's at an active age. If you have more patience with him, he won't hate you so much. 2 consecutive attempts to offer an olive branch were met with cold indifference. Impatience surfaced in Preston's eyes again. Seeing Cecilia packing endlessly without even looking at him directly, his tone suddenly became fierce. Cecilia, what are you making a fuss about now? I didn't drive you back today, but that was because Lydia was injured and there was no room in the car. Cecilia felt he was in the way standing there. She finally stopped and looked at him. I want to do a major cleanup of the house. Do you need something? If not, move. Preston had never seen her with such a distant attitude. He instantly felt she was unreasonable. He had explained, why couldn't she be understanding? The privileged life of these years had spoiled her into becoming more and more like a shrew. Preston slammed the door and left. After clearing out most of the things in the cloakroom, Cecilia dragged them to the recycling bin at the intersection of the residential area. Looking up, she saw Preston in the yard across the street. Her feet moved slightly. The person standing in front of Preston was none other than Lydia. Those newlyweds have such a good relationship. They take a walk in the yard every afternoon. It's truly enviable to watch. A sigh came from beside her. Cecilia turned her head. It was the neighbor from the next building. They had met a few times and would occasionally chat when they bumped into each other. I remember this villa has the best layout in the neighborhood. I heard they paid extra to buy it. Ah, it's good to be young, the neighbor looked envious. Cecilia didn't know what to reply, so she just smiled. It was indeed quite funny. She had been married to Preston for 5 years, yet the neighbors didn't know what her husband looked like, and there were no photos of her and Preston together in the media. For 5 years, she was like an invisible person, handling everything for Preston. Seemingly occupying the title, it was actually an illusion like flowers in a mirror or the moon in water. Seeing Cecilia didn't respond, the neighbor went back inside without saying more. Cecilia turned back to look, feeling only disgust. Placing the mistress less than 200 meters from home, Preston really wasn't hiding anything at all in the small yard. Preston was chatting about something with Lydia. Lydia laughed and threw herself at him. The two hugged. Next, they would probably kiss. Cecilia didn't want to dirty her eyes. She turned and walked away. Preston held Lydia, who had thrown herself at him, his tone helpless. Does your leg not hurt anymore? Just a little bit, Lydia blinked, looking up at him with watery eyes. Stand steady. Preston supported her to stand firm, avoiding her eyes. When he saw Cecilia's back across the street, his heart suddenly panicked. Lydia, I remembered I have something to do. I'll go back first. Preston let go and walked out with large strides. Cecilia was about to close the door when a resistance came. She turned and saw Preston, slightly surprised. I thought you weren't coming back tonight, she said expressionlessly. Lydia had nowhere to go after returning to the country. It's dangerous for a girl to live outside alone. Our neighborhood has good security, so I rented a house for her. Don't overthink it, Preston explained. Cecilia nodded and praised sincerely. The neighbor just told me you newlyweds have a great relationship. You even paid extra to secure that house. The lie was immediately punctured, making Preston lose face. He turned angry from embarrassment. Cecilia, can't you be a bit more generous? How much is a house worth? Why haggle over every ounce? Lydia never causes trouble over these small things. This was a small thing. Cecilia gave a sarcastic smile. Yes, she's virtuous. I can't learn that. I will never be a man's accessory in this life, living by racking my brains to please a man. As soon as the words fell, she saw Preston's face change. She followed his gaze. Lydia was standing at the bottom of the steps at the door, unnoticed until now. I'm sorry, Cecilia. It's my fault. I disturbed your life and caused you trouble. But Lydia looked at Preston, appearing as if she was about to weep. You aren't wrong. She is narrow-minded. After comforting her, Preston ordered Cecilia, apologize to Lydia. Cecilia was truly tired. Woken up in the morning, injured her leg at noon playing games, and packing things all afternoon. Right now, she just wanted to find a quiet place to rest properly. She didn't want to argue these pointless fights here. But clearly, in this house, she couldn't get the peace she wanted. Cecilia turned to go inside, grabbed her bag, and walked out. Preston had just supported Lydia into the door. Seeing Cecilia grabbing her bag to leave, feeling her temper getting worse and worse, anger rushed to his head. "If you leave, don't come back." Just what she wanted, Cecilia scoffed coldly, her steps not stopping. Lydia was standing right by the door, blocking a tiny bit of the path. Cecilia deliberately turned her body sideways. Just as one foot stepped out the door, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Lydia screaming and falling backward. She instinctively reached out to pull her but missed. She watched helplessly as Lydia rolled down the steps, banging her head until it bled. "Cecilia, what the hell are you doing?" Preston's furious roar exploded in her ears. He anxiously went to check on Lydia. "Where are you hurt? I'll take you to the hospital." Lydia stood up as if she was about to faint, one hand covering the injured spot, the other pushing Preston away. "Presty, I'm fine. As long as Cecilia cools down, you two live your lives well. I'll go back and handle it myself." Lydia's attitude was firm, insisting on drawing a line, refusing to go to the hospital. Preston was worried to death. Seeing Cecilia standing there indifferently, he took 2 steps forward, dragged her to Lydia, and pressed her down more violently than the order just now. "Apologize to Lydia? Preston Sterling, if your eyes are bad, go to the hospital to fix them. You want me to apologize?" Impossible. Cecilia used all her strength to break free. Just as she stood firm, a sudden force on her waist made her fall backward into a sitting position. There were 2 or 3 steps behind her. Sitting down like this, she rolled another turn before stopping. Cecilia only felt pain in her tailbone, pain that made cold sweat break out instantly. Her vision spun in waves, and Lydia's noisy voice came to her ears. "Cecilia, are you okay? What could be wrong with her? She just doesn't want to apologize, so she's faking it," Preston's disgusted voice rang out. "But she doesn't seem to be getting up. What's wrong with falling down 2 or 3 steps? You just fell down 7 or 8 steps. Lydia, listen to me. The wound on your head needs to be treated quickly. I'll take you to the hospital." Cecilia couldn't hear the sounds after that. It must have been Preston forcibly dragging the person away. It wasn't until she opened her eyes again and found herself lying in a hospital that Cecilia belatedly realized she hadn't just stopped hearing. She had passed out. The one who sent her here was the neighbor. Seeing her wake up, she chattered incessantly. "I'm telling you, you scared me to death. I was passing your door to buy groceries, and you were just lying there. No matter how I called, there was no reaction. I thought," the words were unlucky, so the neighbor didn't say them, but she urged her. "Since you're awake, hurry up and call your family. Let them come watch over you. The doctor said you took a pretty hard fall and need to be hospitalized for a few days. I have to go home first." Cecilia thanked her. Cecilia didn't call anyone. She hired a nurse, planning to recover quietly. Lydia Lovelace came to find her. With a bandage on her forehead, looking at Cecilia lying in the hospital bed, her face no longer held its usual gentleness. Instead, it wore an arrogant look of schadenfreude. "Cecilia, if you know what's good for you, hurry up and leave to make room for me. Holding on won't end well. You can't beat me." Cecilia found her show of bravado amusing. "Since you're so confident, why did you come specifically to tell me this?" she asked earnestly. Resentment flashed in Lydia's eyes. It was because she discovered that although Preston treated her as well as before these past few days, he kept a certain boundary. This made her uneasy, so she was desperate to get rid of Cecilia. "You should know him very well. His personality is stubborn. Once he decides something, it's hard to change. But he's also someone who dislikes deep schemes and cruel methods. Tell me, if he found out about everything you've done, would he still treat you well?" Cecilia asked herself. Over these years, she had figured out Preston's temperament completely. "Are you threatening me?" Lydia's face darkened, staring at Cecilia with hatred. Cecilia said lightly, "I'm just telling the truth." "Then let's try and see if Presty believes you or me. Just like this time, clearly I fell by myself, yet without even asking, he decided you were the one who did it." Perhaps wanting to regain her confidence, Lydia brought this up voluntarily. "Even your biological son despises you and likes me. Cecilia, what do you have to win against me? You've lost for sure. I'll give you one last chance. Leave on your own. Since you're sensible, I'll allow Julian to visit you in the future. Otherwise, I'll make sure he never acknowledges you as his mother in this life." After Lydia left, Cecilia took out the phone half hidden under the blanket and stopped the recording. Cecilia stayed in the hospital for a week. Except for Lydia, the rival visiting Preston didn't even show his face. Julian came once. He came for Lydia. His purpose was to make her apologize to Lydia, saying the wound on Lydia's forehead might leave a scar, and that Cecilia's heart was vicious for damaging someone's face. Perhaps because she had thought a lot in the hospital bed over the past 2 days and felt that everything was trivial in the face of life and death. Hearing her son say this didn't hurt or anger her as much as before. She was even somewhat curious, so she asked, "If I don't apologize, what will you do? Use violent means like your father?" Julian glared angrily, his voice loud as he declared, "If you don't apologize, I won't recognize you as my mother." "I don't have such a malicious mother," Cecilia waved at him. "Bye-bye, Julian." The father and son were truly identical in wanting her to leave. Great. All 3 of their goals were aligned. "You really don't know how to repent?" Julian ran away huffing and puffing and never came back. When her body stopped hurting, Cecilia processed her discharge and went back to the villa. Before going back, she specifically checked the surveillance to make sure neither Preston nor Julian were there. She threw away the things she hadn't managed to throw away that day, then took her ID documents to a hotel. 3 more days, and her contract with Beatrice would expire. Cecilia originally planned to rest well in the hotel for 3 days and leave with the passport prepared by Beatrice as soon as the time came. But on the last day, there was a knock on the room door. It was Preston. "Cecilia, there has to be a limit to your tantrums." Preston tugged at his tie as he walked in, feeling a fire of suppressed anger in his heart. Seeing Cecilia's indifferent expression, he became even angrier. "Not answering calls, and now you've learned to run away from home. Have I been too easy on you all these years?" "Sorry." Cecilia apologized right away, which made Preston's face look slightly better. But her next sentence was, "I blocked all your numbers, so I didn't get your calls." Preston trembled with anger. "Is there something you need?" Cecilia felt that the days in the hospital were the most relaxing days of these 5 years. As a result, seeing Preston now, she had 0 patience. "If nothing, please go back. I need to rest." "Cecilia, did you forget what day tomorrow is?" Preston asked, suppressing his anger. "Cecilia, what day? Tomorrow is Julian's birthday. I'm throwing a birthday party for him at the Fengzhou Hotel. 6:00 p.m. sharp. Be there." Preston finished speaking and gave Cecilia a deep look. "After the birthday party, we'll have a good talk." Cecilia refused without thinking. "I'm not going." "Cecilia, you are his mother," Preston reminded her loudly. "He doesn't treat me as a mom. Going there is just suffering ridicule. I'm not so bored that I have to look for unhappiness." As Cecilia spoke, she pushed the man out directly and slammed the door shut with a bam. The world was suddenly quiet. As for the talk Preston mentioned, when she wanted to talk to him before, did he ever give her a chance? No, Cecilia didn't want to give him this chance either. She felt her previous notion of wanting a clean break and needing to clarify everything was simply delusional. No one cared. Now she didn't care either. Preston probably complained to Beatrice because, in the evening, Cecilia received a call from Beatrice asking her to attend Julian's birthday party. Cecilia just treat it as the last thing in the contract period. Beatrice's tone was very low, almost pleading. "It's Julian's first birthday party in all these years. Everyone in the family is going. Just show your face." Cecilia agreed. Beatrice was right. It was the last day of the contract. She would endure this one last time. Cecilia was the type of person who, once she agreed to something, would do it and do it well. She arrived at the venue an hour early and even dressed up, but facts proved there was no need for her at all. Julian followed Lydia around the whole time. As the birthday boy, people naturally congratulated him first, and the pleasantries that followed were directed at Lydia. If the waiters had any questions or if something wasn't arranged well, they also went to ask Lydia. Cecilia stood in the venue, more of an outsider than the guests. Fortunately, she had long since let go. With a very peaceful mindset, she found a corner and sampled the drinks and snacks. Compared to the sadness of being excluded by her son, Cecilia now felt more longing for her new life. At 6:00 sharp, a 7-layer cake was pushed in. Candles were lit, lights were turned off, and the birthday song began. Julian stood in front of the big cake, clasping his hands politely and making a wish seriously. Lydia stood right behind him. Preston had just arrived a minute before the lights went out. He glanced at his son, who was surrounded by people, and walked toward Cecilia in the corner. "Why didn't you go over there?" In the moment the lights went out, Cecilia heard him ask. Cecilia was too lazy to answer. After the birthday song, the lights came on. Next was the cake cutting session. Julian couldn't wait to take the knife and fork and hand them very naturally to Lydia. Beatrice stopped him from behind. "Julian, baby, today is your birthday. 5 years ago today, you met Mommy for the first time. Shouldn't Mommy cut the birthday cake?" Beatrice bent down, speaking softly to Julian, took the knife from his hand, and waved to Cecilia across the crowd. "Cecilia, come cut the cake." It seemed the crowd only then realized Cecilia was the biological mother. For a moment, various probing looks swept toward Lydia incessantly. Lydia couldn't stop her smile from freezing. She subconsciously looked at Preston. "Mom is calling you to cut the cake." Preston repeated to Cecilia, thinking this woman really had a big temper lately. Cecilia took a deep breath, stood up, and walked over. Preston moved with her. The crowd made way. Hatred flashed in Lydia's eyes, gone in a flash. The moment Beatrice handed the knife to Cecilia, Lydia let go of Julian's hand. Julian turned to look at her. Seeing her look sad and upset, he immediately started shouting. "I don't want her to cut it, I want Auntie Lydia to cut it for me." He stepped forward, trying to snatch back the knife. Beatrice stopped him, her tone becoming stricter. "If you want, we'll push in a new cake later and let your Auntie Lydia cut it." Julian wouldn't comply. "I want this one." Julian Preston called out his full name. Julian stopped his tantrum, looking at his father with some fear. "Let Mom cut it," Preston said, "but I just promised Auntie Lydia that she could cut it." Julian suddenly felt wronged. He looked at Cecilia and vented all his dissatisfaction on her. "Who asked you to come? I didn't ask you to come at all. You are so annoying, you only know how to make me unhappy. Go away, go away." Julian savagely broke free from Beatrice and pushed Cecilia. A child's strength has no measure. Cecilia's injury had just healed. He pushed her backward, forgetting that behind her was a decorative pyramid of wine glasses. Crash! The wine glasses all fell to the ground. "Cecilia!" Preston was standing right behind Cecilia and immediately went to grab her. Cecilia was standing too close. Even though she was grabbed and didn't fall into the pile of glass, she was still scratched by the splashing shards on the ground. She frowned in pain. Beatrice also hurriedly asked the waiters to clean up. The guests scattered and the scene was chaotic for a moment. "Juju, are you okay?" Lydia eagerly went to care for Julian. Julian was a bit spooked. He was scared. Lydia stared fixedly at Cecilia being helped up. She looked down and said to Julian, "Don't be afraid. Auntie will carry you out." She bent down to pick up Julian. As she stood up, her body swayed and she fell. "Auntie Lydia, Daddy, Daddy, Auntie Lydia is hurt." Julian immediately saw the blood gushing out and shouted anxiously for his father. Preston looked over almost immediately and let go of his hand. He didn't notice that the moment he let go, Cecilia's body swayed. "Lydia, are you okay?" Preston nervously went to pull her up. "I'm fine. Julian isn't hurt, right? As long as he isn't hurt." Lydia's voice trembled with suppressed pain. "You can't just worry about him. Look at how badly you're hurt. I'll take you to the hospital." Preston picked Lydia up without explanation and left. Julian trotted after them without looking back. Cecilia watched this scene, feeling a sense of loss in her heart. She couldn't tell if it was sadness or relief, but ultimately, she didn't feel a shred of reluctance anymore. Originally, she still wanted to give Julian a proper birthday. "I'll take you to the hospital to bandage that up." Beatrice walked to her side, also somewhat at a loss for words. She had seen clearly just now. When Preston let go, he didn't care at all whether Cecilia could stand firm. The glass shards behind her were far more numerous than those under Lydia's feet. If Cecilia hadn't reacted quickly and stood firm, she would be lying on the ground covered in blood right now. Cecilia came back to her senses and looked down at her ankle, where blood was seeping through the hem of her dress. She revealed a smile of relief. "I'll go by myself. Does Mrs. Sterling still need me to stay until 12 o'clock? Seeing this, Beatrice knew her mind was made up. She said no more and handed her an envelope. "The plane ticket and documents are inside." Cecilia took it, nodded, and turned to leave without looking back. Preston, carrying Lydia, walked to the entrance of the banquet hall. His footsteps suddenly paused. For some reason, he turned his head to look. Seeing Cecilia's back walking toward another exit, he felt an indescribable emotion in his heart, as if something was slipping away. "Julian, you go?" Preston looked down, wanting to tell his son to apologize to Cecilia. He had gone too far tonight. Just as the words left his mouth, Lydia in his arms tilted her head and fainted. Preston immediately dared not delay and ran toward the parking lot. Cecilia went to a pharmacy to simply treat the wound on her foot. The clerk watching from the side couldn't help but remind her. "Miss, I see there seem to be residual glass shards in that wound. You'd better go to the hospital to clean it." "It's fine." Cecilia didn't want to stay in this city for a moment longer. She disinfected it casually, put on a Band-Aid, and took a taxi straight to the airport. Sitting in the car watching the scenery retreat outside the window, the bustling skyscrapers disappeared from sight little by little. On the highway, Cecilia rolled down the window, took off the ring on her hand, and threw it out without hesitation. In the hospital, Lydia had woken up. The doctor said she was probably just frightened. The wound only looked like it bled a lot, but actually it wasn't serious. Just don't touch water, and it would scab over in a few days. Preston's heart settled down, but he couldn't help thinking of Cecilia's retreating figure just now. It looked filled with a determination that gave him a bad feeling. "I'll have the driver take you back first." Preston wanted to find Cecilia and have a good talk. Julian refused to go with him, so Preston left him with Lydia. He returned to the banquet hall. The mess on the floor had been cleaned up, the guests were gone, and only his mother was still sitting there. "Mom, where is she?" Preston didn't see Cecilia. Beatrice looked at her son and sighed. "You are her husband, and you're asking me?" She waited here not to talk to her son about Cecilia. "Send Julian over tomorrow to stay with me for a few days." This child, if allowed to stay with Lydia any longer, would definitely turn out good for nothing in the future. Preston assumed his mother missed her grandson, so he agreed. He called Cecilia, but only after hearing the automated voice did he realize Cecilia had blocked him long ago. Holding back his frustration, he rushed to the hotel. He knocked on the door for a long time with no answer. Upon asking the front desk, he learned Cecilia had checked out in the afternoon. Preston laughed out of anger. Fine, so she really had a temper now. Preston didn't think much of it. He just felt Cecilia's temper was getting bigger lately. His repeated bowing of the head had only made her more ungrateful. Then, let's just wait it out. He didn't believe this woman could really be cruel enough to leave her child behind regardless. Preston didn't go home, but he kept his phone on 24 hours a day, waiting for Cecilia to call and submit. However, he waited left and right, and for 3 consecutive days, let alone a call, not even a text message popped up. This made Preston's temper in the company grow bigger every day. "Assistant, Mr. Sterling, perhaps Madam has been waiting for you at home all along." Preston remembered how every day when he came home from work in the past, Cecilia would come out smiling to welcome him, actively chatting about what Julian did today, asking if his work was busy, and interjecting about what delicious food she made for him tonight. Thinking of this, the wicked fire in Preston's heart dissipated by half. He grabbed his car keys and rushed home. Driving into the yard, seeing the gate unlocked, Preston's tense expression instantly relaxed. Even his steps weren't so hurried. He walked into the hall and looked around. He didn't see Cecilia, nor did he see the maids. "Cecilia?" Preston called out. He checked the bedroom, no one. Remembering Cecilia stayed in the guest bedroom for a few days, he went there to look, no one either. The entire villa was deathly quiet. Preston thought of something and abruptly turned back to the master bedroom, pushing open the cloakroom door. He found the enormous cloakroom completely empty. Everything related to Cecilia in the whole house had vanished cleanly. Preston felt increasingly unconfident. He called the maids, questioning why they hadn't come to work. "Maid, Madam gave us a vacation 2 weeks ago, saying the villa was going to be renovated." 2 weeks ago. That meant starting from when she pushed Lydia and broke her head. She did something like that, and he didn't even say anything in the end, yet she was dead set on being stubborn with him. Preston slammed the phone down in a rage and kicked the coffee table. The papers on the coffee table were kicked and scattered. Preston glanced at them casually, not caring at first, but the large, bold words, "Supplementary Marriage Agreement," on one of the sheets caught his eye clearly. Frowning, he bent down to pick it up. He didn't recall signing any agreement when he married Cecilia. Preston practically rushed in. Beatrice was tutoring Julian on his schoolwork for the day. Seeing her son come in with red eyes clutching a document, she understood roughly what happened and spoke first. "Julian, go play in the yard for a bit. Grandma needs to discuss something with your dad." Once Julian left, Preston smashed the document onto the table, gritting his teeth. "Mom, what exactly is going on? Why is my marriage certificate with Cecilia fake? And what is this 5-year contract?" Preston refused to believe it. For the past 5 years, he had been living in a lie woven by that woman and his mother. Now the contract expired, and she disappeared without a trace, without even saying goodbye. She had given him a son. How could her heart be so cruel? Julian was only 5. Preston's eyes were incredibly red. "It's exactly what you see." Beatrice looked at her son's regretful appearance now and let out a long sigh. She hadn't expected Cecilia to be so ruthless, leaving no room for negotiation. "Why? Why did you do this?" Preston roared. "Then you tell Mom. What should I have done to pull you out of that state back then?" Beatrice wanted to ask too. "For a Lydia Lovelace who abandoned you to climb to greater wealth and glory, you almost died in a car accident and collapsed completely. You are my only son. If I didn't do this, was I supposed to watch you die for a woman?" Preston met his mother's gaze, unable to vent his chest full of anger. He was mute for a long time before finally asking one sentence. "Where did she go?" "I gave her a plane ticket to Country D. As for whether she went, I don't know." Beatrice didn't hide it from her son. She didn't want to hide it either. If her son could stay away from Lydia because of this, Beatrice thought it would be a good thing. Preston flew to Country D that afternoon. But he used the identity Beatrice arranged for Cecilia to check again and again, search again and again, but in the end, it was no such person. Yet in the domestic flight system, Cecilia had indeed boarded the plane. Preston searched in Country D for a week, looking as if he wouldn't return until he found her, unwilling to give up. Beatrice called him, asking only one thing: "Are you still going to care for Cecilia's son?" "Cecilia doesn't want him anymore. What's the use of me caring? She won't come back." Preston held the phone, his voice defeated. For half a month, there was no news of Cecilia. He was like a lost soul, eating poorly and sleeping poorly. A handsome, relaxed man was forcibly worn down into the exhaustion a middle-aged man should have. "So, if he acknowledges Lydia as his mom, you agree to that too?" After Lydia was discharged, she hadn't seen Preston. Although the man answered every time she called and comforted her to recover well, saying he would visit her when he was done, Lydia was just very uneasy. She learned from Julian's mouth through indirect questioning that Preston wasn't busy with official business at all, but flew to Country D to find Cecilia. She was both surprised and delighted. Delighted that Cecilia really knew her place and left, but panicked by Preston's attitude. He shouldn't have left her behind for that woman. He should have been happy and then come to tell her that they could finally be together openly. But Lydia dared not say, "Marry me," so directly to Preston now. So she turned her attention to Julian. In every conversation, she instilled in him that Cecilia didn't want him anymore. How cruel she was. She also deliberately played videos of children without mothers being discriminated against by classmates at school. Julian didn't like Cecilia to begin with. Hearing she ran away, he was furious. "I don't want such a cruel mom even if she comes back. I don't want her." Lydia was very satisfied, but she pretended to be worried and said, "But your dad seems determined to find her back." Hearing this, Julian immediately called his dad 800 times a day, urging him to come back, saying he missed him, then turned around and looked at Lydia eagerly asking, "Auntie Lydia, will you be my mom?" Lydia certainly wanted to, but she couldn't appear too purposeful. She only said with difficulty, "Julian is so smart and well-behaved. Of course I hope to be your mom, but will your dad agree?" Julian vowed, "Don't worry, Auntie Lydia. I'll tell Dad to marry you." Lydia smiled with satisfaction. Preston went directly to find Lydia upon his return. Seeing him enter, Lydia greeted him with a face full of joy. "Presty, you, I'm here to take Julian back." Preston interrupted her, calling for Julian somewhat forcefully. "Dad, I don't want to go back and live with Grandma. I want to live with Auntie Lydia." Julian didn't want to go back. Grandma was a bit like Mom. She always controlled too much. He didn't like it. Preston just swept a cold glance at him. Get in the car. Seeing him angry, Julian was still a bit afraid. He bit his lip and walked out reluctantly. Lydia's smile faltered. "Presty, did something happen?" Julian was doing fine staying here. I took him to school every day. Nothing happened. Just recover well. Preston gave Lydia a deep look. If you need anything, call my assistant. He finished speaking and left with large strides. Lydia's face darkened little by little, revealing a sinister look. He said call the assistant, not call him. That bitch left, yet she could still affect Preston in the car. Preston opened with, keep some distance from your Auntie Lydia in the future. Why? Dad, don't you like Auntie Lydia anymore? Julian glared. When did I say I liked her? As soon as Preston said this, he couldn't help feeling irritable again. He had just looked after Lydia a bit more. Did Cecilia think the same? So that's why she left. Anyway, you are not allowed to live at her house in the future. Grandma will look after you for a while. Preston's tone wasn't good. I don't want to why you told me to get along well with Auntie Lydia before. Now you say no means no. I won't. Julian started crying and making a scene. He even tried to pull the car door handle. I want to go back to find Auntie Lydia. None of you respect me. Only she respects me. Preston had a headache from his noise. He stopped the car by the roadside. Enough, he looked at his son, trying to make him realize a fact. You have your own home, your own dad and mom. Auntie Lydia is just an auntie. Visiting during holidays is enough. You're lying. Mom doesn't want me anymore. I know it all. She ran away long ago. You didn't find her either during this time. She just went abroad to relax. She'll be back in a while. Preston gripped the steering wheel tightly. He refused to accept the fact that Cecilia had abandoned them, father and son. I don't want her back. Even if she comes back, I won't recognize her. She's a vicious woman who can abandon even her own son. Julian pulled his father's hand, acting spoiled and ingratiating. Dad, she doesn't want you either. Let's not look for her, okay? Auntie Lydia is so nice. She's so gentle. It's fine for us to live with Auntie Lydia. Shut up, you are not allowed to mention this again. Your mother is Cecilia Lane, and it will only be her. Preston scolded. I already said I won't recognize her. If you don't marry Auntie Lydia, then let me be an orphan. Let me be bullied by everyone at school. Julian got angry too. After shouting, he turned his head away, facing Preston with the back of his head. You. Preston was so angry he almost couldn't catch his breath. He wasn't dead yet. What orphan? Orphan? Preston knew where Cecilia went. Right, she must have gone back. In an instant, Preston didn't care about disciplining his son anymore. He had the driver send the boy to his mother's place and slammed on the gas to go to the orphanage himself. The orphanage. After learning the purpose of Preston's visit, the usually kind-hearted director Mama turned cold, claiming ignorance to everything. But Preston was convinced she knew, so he came every day, even having his assistant donate a large sum of money. When he arrived today, he saw the director guiding a couple through the adoption process. After the couple left happily with a child, Preston asked, Director, is Serenity, the girl Cecilia and I plan to adopt, still here? Cecilia took her away long ago. Perhaps due to the donation, the director's attitude toward him was slightly better these past 2 days. When did she take her? Preston was incredulous. I didn't even go with her to handle the adoption. Halfway through his sentence, he remembered that his marriage certificate with Cecilia was fake. Whether he went or not, what difference did it make? His expression slumped instantly. Seeing him like this, the director sighed. If you knew it would be like this, why act that way in the beginning? I really never thought about divorcing her and never said. I wanted to cheat. Preston found these words somewhat hard to say. He truly regretted it now. If he had known it would turn out like this, he definitely wouldn't have arranged for Lydia to be by his side. He just couldn't bear it, afraid she wouldn't live well alone, but he really hadn't cheated. Director, just tell me where exactly she went. Let me see her once, ask her a few questions personally, please. Preston lowered his stance significantly. The director just shook her head. I really don't know where she went. But the day she took Serenity, she left a USB drive with me. I think the answers to the questions you want to ask are all inside. The director opened a drawer, found the USB drive, and handed it to him. Preston took the USB drive back to the villa. There was only one file on the drive. He clicked it open. It was a video. The view was partially blocked and tilted upward, but it wasn't hard to tell it was a hospital. There was also a woman's figure in the shot. Her face wasn't captured, but the moment the voice came out, Preston recognized this person as Lydia Lovelace. Cecilia, if you know what's good for you, hurry up and leave to make room for me. Holding on won't end well. You can't beat me, Lydia's arrogant threat entered his ears clearly. Preston had a look of disbelief. He even rewound to the beginning to listen again, confirming he hadn't misheard. After this segment ended, the screen went black for a few seconds before lighting up again. This time, it was the surveillance facing the main gate of the house. From this angle, he could see clearly that when Cecilia grabbed her bag and left, she didn't touch Lydia at all. Lydia rolled down by herself. Cecilia even tried to pull her but missed. But at that time, Preston only saw Cecilia's hand extended in mid-air and decided without asking a single question that she pushed Lydia. He had even pressed Cecilia to apologize. The video continued with Preston's thoughts. He saw Lydia, whom he had favored, deliberately push Cecilia. Then he decisively concluded Cecilia was avoiding apology on purpose and strode away holding Lydia. The video hadn't ended, but it fast-forwarded until half an hour later when the neighbor rushed in and called 911 to carry away the unconscious Cecilia lying on the ground. Following that was the medical report, clearly stating a tailbone injury. When Preston saw this, he could hardly breathe. He forced himself to keep watching. The rest were Lydia's deliberate provocations via messages, intimate photos with him, happy playtimes with Julian, and her instigating Julian not to recognize Cecilia as his mother. Preston felt dizzy. It turned out he had wronged Cecilia about everything. Cecilia did go to the airport, but she didn't go abroad. She went to the orphanage, took Serenity, and went to Riverton. She had liked this city since she was very young. Now that she had finally settled down here and had a well-behaved and cute daughter, Cecilia felt life had never been so relaxed and pleasant. When she wasn't busy over the years, she took some freelance jobs online and saved quite a bit of money privately. She took out a portion to buy a nice second-hand apartment. It was less than 500 meters from an elementary school, which would be convenient for Serenity in 2 years. After settling everything in her daily life, Cecilia planned to find a job. Her education was good, and her resume showed she had held a position in Preston's company for the past 5 years. Coupled with her outstanding image and temperament, she was hired almost without suspense. With a job, life became more fulfilling. Relying on her excellent workability, Cecilia was soon promoted by her boss to be his assistant. That day, just as she finished reporting work and was about to leave, Simon Summers stopped her. "Cecilia, do you mind if I ask why you gave up large companies with more room for advancement and chose to join such a small-scale enterprise?" "Too tiring. I hoped for something more relaxed with more time to accompany my child," Cecilia answered with a smile. But she noticed Simon's gaze seemed to hold some deeper meaning. She couldn't help asking, "Mr. Summers, is there a problem?" Simon turned his monitor toward her. In bold letters, "Preston Sterling publicly admits being married for 5 years, has a child with wife Cecilia Lane." Cecilia sneered in her heart but showed nothing on her face. What a coincidence. She has the same name as me. "Cecilia, I admire you very much. If you need help with anything outside of work, you can tell me." Simon didn't echo her comment, he just adjusted the interface. "The HR department of Sterling Corp is checking if your resume has been registered. I've already had someone modify your employment file." Cecilia took a deep breath, secretly thinking she had been careless. Her file had always been under Sterling Corp because Beatrice handled it, so she hadn't guarded against this. Preston must have checked recently and found out. It seemed he went to the orphanage and got that USB drive. "Mr. Summers, thank you," Cecilia suppressed her thoughts. Walking out of the office, she checked the trending searches on her phone. Preston, in a suit and tie, holding Julian who looked exactly like him, faced reporters' questions, admitting his wife with tenderness on his face. Cecilia frowned watching it. She thought his deep affection only existed when facing Lydia. Now, it seemed his feelings for Lydia were just so-so. This man loved himself from beginning to end, doing things entirely based on his whims. Like when she still cared about these things, his eyes only saw Lydia, and he protected Lydia tirelessly, ignoring her completely. But now that she was gone, he ruthlessly ignored Lydia and brazenly put on this show of marital bliss. Truly bad luck. Cecilia closed her phone and exited the interface. Meanwhile, Lydia, who also saw the trending search, no longer had her usual gentleness on her face, only hatred. She looked at the heartless man sitting on the sofa and questioned him. Why? Preston Sterling, why are you doing this? You clearly said the person you loved most was me and promised to give me a home. Julian had never seen Auntie Lydia like this. He was a bit afraid to step forward. You know clearly what you did. Preston looked at her with cold eyes, his words exceptionally ruthless. This is a plane ticket. In 2 hours, I will arrange for someone to personally escort you back to Europe. Lydia panicked. Shaking her head, she backed away. Presty, you can't do this to me. She looked at Julian, rushed over to hug him, her voice panicked. Juju, don't you like Auntie Lydia the best? Go tell your dad not to send me away. Dad? Julian actually opened his mouth. Preston just glanced at him. Julian swallowed the rest of his words. He just felt that in the past few days, there was a gloomy, frightening aura about his dad. Usually loving to act spoiled, he didn't dare ask for anything loudly. But this was Auntie Lydia. Julian thought blankly about what to do. Dad, what did Auntie Lydia do wrong? I don't want to be separated from her. If you send her away, I won't talk to you anymore. Presty, Cecilia is gone. I don't know what you heard, but my heart for you and Julian is real. You can't do this to me. Lydia cried heartbrokenly. She really wouldn't give up until the end. Preston watched Lydia, still acting out a scene of deep affection, betrayed, and heart-wrenching sorrow, and felt the fire in his heart flare up violently. You said your ex-husband cheated during your pregnancy and abused you while drunk, causing you to lose the baby. I believed it, so I cared for you in every way. You said looking at Julian reminded you of your own child, so I let him accompany you more. Lydia Lovelace, I trusted you so much. And the result? Preston laughed out of extreme anger. After watching the contents of the USB drive, he sent people to Europe to investigate. What pregnancy cheating? What drunken abuse? All lies. The truth was that after she married over there, she spent lavishly and even became addicted to gambling. After repeated orders to change were ignored, she was divorced and kicked out. And because no one paid her high gambling debts, she was afraid the casino people would harm her, so she returned to the country to find him. How laughable. For such a lying, ungrateful woman, he destroyed his home, he lost the person who truly treated him well. Preston laid out all the evidence, piece by piece. Lydia could no longer refute. Her face turned pale as she slumped to the floor, terrified. She didn't want to go back to Europe. Those psychopaths would make her a plaything, living a life worse than death until she paid off the money. She didn't want that. Presty, I know I was wrong. Don't send me away. I beg you, for the sake of us once being together. Lydia practically crawled over to hug Preston's leg, begging bitterly. You shouldn't have touched Cecilia. Preston's ink-black eyes looked at Lydia like a stranger. He shook her off, looking at her without any warmth. Send her away. Bodyguards responded and entered. Preston Sterling, do you think Cecilia will come back if you send me away? No, ha, she won't come back. All this isn't because of me. It's you. You permitted me to hurt her. And you let Julian favor me. You gave the opportunity. You are the culprit. Your son is just like you, heartless and unjust. He can even deny his own biological mother. You father and son are exactly the same, selfish and self-serving. Ha, deserved. You deserve to have your family ruined. Seeing things had come to this, Lydia stopped pretending and cursed loudly. Julian followed his father away numbly. He couldn't accept it. Dad, Auntie lie? Preston leaned back in his chair, raising his hand to press his throbbing temples. She isn't your auntie. She is just a hypocritical liar. Julian's mind was filled with the vicious look Lydia gave him just now. Holding his father's hand, at this moment, he finally remembered. Then, Mom, where is Mommy? Think carefully. Did Mom ever tell you where she wanted to go? Preston also wanted to know where Cecilia was, but he had searched everywhere and just couldn't find her. Preston couldn't sleep at night now. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw Cecilia lying on the ground, lifeless. After a long while, Julian spoke uncertainly. Mom seems to have said she wanted to go to Riverton. Recently, with the company's new products launching, Cecilia became busy as Simon's assistant. This meant sometimes she couldn't pick up Serenity from kindergarten on time. When Simon accidentally heard her apologizing to the teacher on the phone and saying she would arrive as soon as possible, he knocked on the door. Cecilia turned to look at him. Mr. Summers, do you need help? I can have my driver pick her up, Simon asked. Cecilia hesitated but nodded, mainly because she had been working too much overtime these days, and Serenity had experienced the sudden death of her parents and being sent to an orphanage. Whenever she was late, she would explain, and Serenity would obediently say it was okay. But Cecilia could sense her anxiety these past few days. She described Simon's driver and gave the license plate number to the teacher. After hanging up, she felt somewhat embarrassed. "Thank you to trouble you, Mr. Summers. Why be so polite? You share a lot of pressure for me. It's a small matter." Simon responded gently and offered actively. "After these busy days, I'll give you a vacation." "Okay." When Serenity was led into the office by Simon, the tiny person was holding a pile of things, having to look up to walk because she couldn't see her feet. "What is this?" Cecilia asked. "Mommy, Uncle Simon bought them for me. I said no." Serenity nervously went to hold Cecilia's hand. "Mommy said not to accept gifts from strangers casually. I originally just wanted to buy her a bottle of water, but she was too cute. I couldn't resist," Simon said, reaching out to pinch Serenity's cheek. He squatted in front of her and asked softly, "Will Rennie come here to play after school in the future, okay?" Serenity blinked and looked up at her mom. Cecilia laughed. "Mr. Summers, you just said you'd give me a vacation. Why does it sound like you want me to work overtime every day now?" Simon laughed along. "If you don't mind, when not busy, I can take Rennie out to play." "Of course, with you." Cecilia looked at Simon quietly for a few seconds, then withdrew her gaze and rubbed Serenity's head. "Thank Uncle Simon." "Uncle Simon, thank you for the gifts you bought me. I like them very much." Serenity thanked him earnestly. Her voice was tender and crisp. It really softened people's hearts. "You're welcome," Simon replied patiently. Cecilia let Serenity play on the sofa nearby. Simon stood up. "You raised her very well." Cecilia smiled but didn't speak, lowering her head to continue working. When she finished organizing the document in hand and looked up, seeing Simon still there, she was puzzled. "Does Mr. Summers have other business? I have to go on a business trip to inspect the new factory tomorrow. It might take 2 or 3 days. Should I make arrangements for Serenity to come along?" Simon asked thoughtfully. "Business trip." Cecilia naturally didn't feel safe leaving Serenity here alone, but bringing her along. "Would it be too much trouble for you?" She didn't think bringing Serenity would delay her work, mainly concerning Simon. "You seem very afraid of causing trouble for people," Simon countered. Cecilia pursed her lips. "It was just a habit from the past 5 years. It's not trouble," Simon said. "Cecilia, I like Serenity very much." Meeting Simon's gentle and sincere gaze, Cecilia's fingers subconsciously curled. She took a deep breath in her heart, looked away, and nodded. Then, the word trouble on her lips turned into, "I'll leave the arrangements to you, Mr. Summers." "Okay. Send me Serenity's ID info. I'll book the tickets. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." Cecilia reported the info and address. They had to get to the airport 2 hours early. When Simon came to pick them up, the sun had just risen. Serenity hadn't woken up yet, so Cecilia carried her down. Simon waited downstairs. Seeing through the glass that she was holding the child in one arm and carrying a bag in the other, he took a few steps forward, wanting to take Serenity. "She's asleep." Cecilia dodged slightly, keeping her voice low. Simon switched to taking the bag and quickly opened the car door, putting his hand on top to prevent her from hitting her head. After Cecilia and Serenity got in, he went around to the passenger seat and handed over a neatly folded blanket. "It takes an hour to the airport. You sleep a bit too." Cecilia didn't refuse. Simon drove away. Not long after, another car stopped downstairs. The door opened, and Preston stepped out. Looking at the residential area in front of him, obviously inferior to the Sterling villa, he frowned. "Dad, does Mom really live here?" Julian asked. Preston answered, stepping inside. Serenity's registration documents listed this address. Cecilia must be here too. The business trip lasted 3 days, but aside from the first day inspecting the factory and finalizing details, which was work, the second and third days were spent with Simon driving Cecilia and Serenity around to play. Cecilia asked, and Simon said this was also part of the inspection, observing if this area was suitable for new product sales and estimating the first batch quantity. Watching Serenity chasing Bubbles behind a mascot not far away, Cecilia glanced at Simon. Seeing him also watching Serenity with a smile, she suddenly asked, "Mr. Summers likes children very much?" "Call me Simon. We aren't at the company now," Simon said before answering her question. I don't actually like children specifically, but for some reason, seeing Serenity makes me feel she is very cute. He turned his head to look at Cecilia, his tone slowing down. Can I ask a personal question? I see your file says single. Serenity's father? Died, Cecilia answered without hesitation. Simon was obviously stunned for a moment. Cecilia oddly found his expression a bit funny. She softened her tone. I only found out I was pregnant after he died. It was an accident, a car crash. Simon felt a bit embarrassed. Sorry to bring up your sad past. Cecilia was about to shake her head to show she didn't care. What sad past? She was very satisfied with her current life. Compared to the days with a husband, it was simply too refreshing. To apologize, I'll take you and Serenity to a hot spring tonight. I heard there's a very nice one nearby. Since we're going back to the company tomorrow, consider it an advance bonus. Simon spoke seriously. After finishing, he didn't give Cecilia a chance to answer. He got up and went to Serenity. He squatted down and said something to her, and Serenity came bouncing over holding a balloon. Mommy, I want a swimsuit with lots of pretty flowers, Serenity gestured with shining eyes. Clearly, Simon had told her he was taking her to the hot springs. Children always have strong anticipation for things they haven't experienced. Meeting Serenity's longing expression, Cecilia couldn't say the words of refusal. She could only follow Simon's arrangement, buy swimsuits, and head to the hot springs. Simon booked a private indoor hot spring. The pool wasn't too big, but it wouldn't feel crowded for 3 people. Serenity wore a swim ring and splashed around happily. Cecilia leaned against the steps and sat down. Simon brought in some fruit platters. He had changed clothes too. Cecilia couldn't help but take a few more looks. Usually he looked thin, but unexpectedly he was quite fit. Simon didn't sit very close to her. They maintained a half-arm's distance. At first, they talked about work. Simon asked if she felt it was too busy to handle. Later, they started talking about Serenity. Simon said the experimental elementary school Cecilia was eyeing required an admission application 2 years in advance because spots were few. He asked if she needed help, saying he knew people. Regarding the child, Cecilia always gave the best within her range, so she agreed. But she felt Simon seemed to care too much about Serenity. She wanted to create some distance, so she deliberately used a teasing tone. Simon, why don't you just let Serenity accept you as her godfather? Simon paused for a few seconds before speaking. It wasn't an answer, but a reserved yet frank expression of his feelings. Cecilia, compared to godfather, I prefer the title dad. Cecilia stopped talking, but the smile on her face became distant. She got up from the steps and called Serenity. Are you tired? Do you want to go outside and play for a while? Serenity nodded. Cecilia took her hand and walked out. Simon sighed helplessly and followed. Cecilia, don't be in a hurry to reject me. Rest assured, before you agree, I won't do anything you dislike. Cecilia still didn't answer him. She was just worn out by those 5 years and was somewhat afraid of repeating the same mistakes. Downstairs at the apartment complex, the father and son, who had been waiting for 2 days, looked somewhat disheveled. Dad, does Mom not live here anymore? Should we go look somewhere else? Wait a bit longer. She will definitely come back. Preston's words sounded more like he was telling himself. The car stopped downstairs. Simon got out first, went around to the back, and opened the door. You carry Serenity. I'll carry the things up for you, okay? He asked. Cecilia looked at the back seat packed full of stuff and couldn't help sighing. You bought too much. Simon smiled. It's normal for kids to love beauty. Actually, I think you should buy more too. Cecilia wasn't very interested in dressing up. She got out of the car and was about to bend over to pick up Serenity when a familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind. Cecilia, it was Preston. Cecilia turned around, instinctively blocking the car door. Mommy. Julian called out, stepping forward, but stopped under Cecilia's cold gaze, looking a bit timid. Simon asked, Need help? Cecilia, I want to talk to you. Preston's gaze swept over Simon, his eyes becoming guarded. He deliberately said, Julian has missed you very much these past few days. So? Cecilia asked. So what? Preston didn't understand. He misses me, so I have to pay attention to him, Cecilia countered. She looked coldly at the father and son, her expression blatantly mocking. When I wanted to talk to you, did any of you give me time? Preston was choked into silence, but he didn't want to appear weak in front of an outsider. Cecilia, I can explain. Let's find a place to sit down and talk properly, okay? No, Cecilia refused without hesitation. Preston Sterling, take your cheap regret and your son and leave, or I'll call the police. Preston felt she was so strange that his heart panicked. His voice softened, carrying a plea. Cecilia, for the sake of the child. If it weren't for Julian, I would have called the police the moment you appeared. You didn't use normal means to find my residence, right? Cecilia interrupted his moral kidnapping. Preston Sterling, wanna try? See if I'm just the housewife who relied on you for 5 years, or if I can put you in jail. In Cecilia's distant and indifferent gaze, Preston felt as if his throat was stuffed with cotton, unable to speak. Mommy. Julian also felt this mother was so strange enough that he dared not approach. Don't call me Mommy. Julian, you said it yourself. If you don't apologize, you won't recognize me as your mother. So now, let's not recognize each other. Cecilia's almost cold, even cruel words made Julian burst into tears. Mommy, I know I was wrong. Cecilia ignored him. She turned to pick up Serenity. Serenity asked sleepily, Mommy, what happened? Nothing, go back to sleep, sweetie. Cecilia didn't want her to see these messy things, so she covered her head with the blanket. Cecilia walked toward the building. Preston wanted to follow but was blocked by Simon. Mr. Sterling, Cecilia doesn't want to see you. Please have some self-respect. Preston watched Cecilia enter the elevator, his face darkening as he looked at Simon. I am her husband. This is our family matter. Simon smiled faintly. I only know that Cecilia doesn't want to be involved with you. Preston's expression grew even more sinister. Mr. Sterling, perhaps what you should do now is settle your son first. It's very cold tonight. If he catches a cold. Simon's gentle words struck the heart. Failing as a husband, are you going to fail as a father too? Preston turned to look at his son, who was still sobbing. His mind suddenly recalled promising Cecilia back then that he would be a good husband and father, protecting her and their son. He couldn't let Cecilia continue to be disappointed. Preston carried his son into the car. Before leaving, he looked at Simon and warned him, I've been married to Cecilia for 5 years. Our feelings aren't something just anyone can intervene in. Simon smiled without speaking. After the car drove away, he picked up the things belonging to Serenity and Cecilia and went upstairs. Thank you, Cecilia said to Simon. Simon looked at her. Cecilia, just now, it's just as you saw. I cohabited with Preston Sterling for 5 years and have a child. You've troubled yourself these past few days. Tomorrow I'll hire a nanny, so you don't need to pick up and drop off Serenity anymore, Cecilia said politely. Cecilia, Simon grabbed her, somewhat angry at her words clearing the relationship. From the day you joined, I knew you had a family and a child. If I cared about that, I wouldn't have tried every way to be good to you and Serenity. Cecilia looked at him and said without emotion, but you saw it too. Behind Preston stands Sterling Corp. He is a willful person. If he engages and brings disadvantages to your company. Simon suddenly laughed. He spoke with certainty. Cecilia, you don't have zero feelings for me, right? You are worried about me. Cecilia shifted her gaze slightly. She stiffened her voice deliberately. I'm just giving you an objective analysis. Sterling Corp's foundation isn't in Riverton. My enterprise is a private one, having won the People's Livelihood Award in Riverton for 2 consecutive years. So you don't need to worry about me. Simon only worried about her. You just said you cohabited with Preston for 5 years? We didn't get a marriage certificate. We only got together because of his mother's contract. Seeing his firm resolve, Cecilia didn't hide it from him and briefly explained. Simon understood after listening. He definitely won't go back so easily. Do you need? No need. I can handle it myself. Cecilia refused him. Simon didn't say more. He bade her good night and left. Preston naturally wouldn't give up easily. Back then, Lydia got married, and he still chased her abroad. But Cecilia wasn't Lydia. She wouldn't allow herself to soften. The next day, Preston stopped Cecilia directly at the company entrance. Cecilia, I've already sent Lydia back. That house has been changed to your name now. I misunderstood you before. Sorry, I shouldn't have distrusted you. Is your injury healed? Does it still hurt? Preston didn't bring Julian today. As soon as he saw Cecilia, he expressed concern rapidly. Do you know what your behavior is called right now? Cecilia listened, but not a single ripple stirred in her heart. Too little, too late, Preston held her, looking remorseful. I know, it's all my fault. Cecilia, I accept whatever you call me, but can you not be so heartless? The heartless one is you, Preston. If the neighbor hadn't passed by and called an ambulance that day, in that freezing weather, sub-zero at night, I would have frozen to death at the doorstep. Cecilia pulled her hand out. Her heart still felt waves of dull, acidic pain, but she would never give Preston the chance to hurt her again. On the birthday, hearing Lydia was injured, you let go of my hand immediately. The glass shattered into thousands of pieces, was right under my feet. If I hadn't stood firm, I would be in the ICU right now. Cecilia said these things not for Preston's comfort or apology. She simply wanted to state the facts, to let this man see what right he had to stand before her and accuse her of being heartless. I didn't know, I thought you. Preston's explanation was pale. He didn't even dare to voice those assumptions. He just apologized again and again. I really know I was wrong, Cecilia. I was just deceived by Lydia, thinking of the good times in our youth, so I couldn't help caring for her more. But I really didn't cheat. Didn't cheat? Then what should I say? Thank you for keeping yourself pure for me. Cecilia was truly amused by his statement. She unlocked her phone, clicked a video to play, and turned the volume to the max. Lydia, I still can't forget you. Will you come back to me? Daddy, I want Auntie Lydia to be my mommy. The clear words made Preston sway unsteadily. He couldn't maintain his composure, explaining in a panic, these words weren't my true intention. I just didn't consider me at all. You felt I was insignificant, felt I wasn't a good match, so even the child I carried for 10 months, you treated as an object to please Lydia. Cecilia stepped back, creating distance, looking at him coldly. Preston Sterling, don't you feel guilty saying these things? Who do you think you are? Your apology is worthless. Don't appear in front of me again. You don't want me to hand these videos to the paparazzi and let everyone know, do you? Cecilia turned and walked away cleanly. Preston couldn't enter the office building and could only wait downstairs. Simon specifically had the driver pick Serenity up from the side entrance parking lot and brought her up, taking the chance to tell Cecilia. Preston seems to be inquiring about apartments in your complex. He seems to want to be your neighbor. Serenity blinked. Although she was young, she remembered this name. She looked at her mom puzzled. Mommy, is it Daddy? No, just a stranger. In the future, if you see him, no matter what he says, don't believe him and don't go with him. Cecilia patted her head and instructed. Serenity nodded obediently and was coaxed to play aside. Cecilia frowned. She wasn't afraid of Preston, but his lingering harassment would affect her life. Do you want to stay at my place for a few days? The security at my complex is good. Simon asked tentatively, and when Cecilia looked over, he added, I can go stay at your place. Maybe after squatting for a few days, he'll give up and go back. Cecilia was amused. She didn't guard against Simon to that extent. Having interacted for a while, she could feel Simon's fondness for Serenity was sincere, not fake. And indeed, he hadn't done anything disrespectful. You have a point. Then Serenity and I will trouble you. Cecilia agreed. Simon couldn't stop his joy. He tried hard to suppress his tone to sound less pathetic. Then I'll go buy some things you might use now. Cecilia nodded. After Simon left, she got up and walked to the window to look down. Seeing the familiar car in the parking lot, she made a call. Mrs. Sterling, the contract clearly stated that after the 5-year term, you would hide my tracks so Preston wouldn't find me. Shouldn't you be doing something now? In the afternoon, the receptionist came in holding a large bouquet of flowers. Assistant Lane, these are addressed to you. There's also a letter. Cecilia opened the letter and glanced at it. It was Preston's handwriting, brief. Cecilia, Mom is sick and hospitalized. I have to go back. Can you look after Julian for 2 days? Cecilia sneered, crumpled the paper into a ball, and threw it into the trash can. She looked at the large bouquet of roses. Please help me throw this out too. Ah, these flowers seem quite expensive. What a waste. The receptionist commented. Then I give them to you. Next time if anyone sends things to me, no need to bring them up. Handle them as you see fit, Cecilia said. Thank you, Assistant Lane. The receptionist carried the flowers downstairs and told the delivery guy waiting there, our Assistant Lane said nothing. The delivery guy went out and relayed the message to Preston. Hearing this, Preston mistakenly thought Cecilia accepted the flowers. His mood improved slightly. After generously tipping the runner, he turned to instruct Julian. Behave yourself around Mom these next few days. Make her happy and try to get her to agree to come home." Julian nodded. During this time, he had finally accepted that Lydia was a liar and began to miss his mother, who always spoke to him gently. In Preston's view, Cecilia was still angry, but she definitely wasn't the type to abandon her own child. He waited until the end of the workday, until all the lights in the building went out, but didn't see Cecilia come out. Instead, the hospital called several times asking where he was, saying his mother's condition needed to be discussed with the guardian in person. After dealing with the hospital, Preston looked at the pitch-black building again, then at his son, who had curled up and fallen asleep on the chair. He let out a harsh breath and stepped on the gas to leave. Simon's place wasn't far from the company, a 10-minute drive. The apartment wasn't huge, but it was decorated warmly. Serenity especially liked the super-large sofa in the living room. She rolled around on it, reluctant to get up. "Mommy, can we sleep on the sofa tonight?" she asked eagerly. "Sure, I'll get the blankets for you," Simon responded, going into the room to get bedding. Serenity rolled another turn on the sofa and shouted super loudly, "Thank you, Uncle Simon, Uncle Simon, you're so good." Cecilia looked at Serenity. When she first took the little girl away, she was timid, always sticking to her, feeling insecure if she couldn't see her. Nurtured well during this time, her face had rounded out, and she was much bolder. Occasionally, when Cecilia was busy, she would go find Simon herself. "You like Uncle Simon?" Cecilia pinched her cheek. Serenity nodded like a chick pecking rice, leaning close to her mom's ear to whisper, "Mommy, does Uncle Simon like you? Why are you concerned about Mommy's business, Cecilia deliberately put on a stern face. But Serenity had figured out she wouldn't get angry over this. She just smiled and leaned in to kiss her, rubbing against her, not answering but stating on her own, "I like Uncle Simon too." Cecilia tickled her. Simon came out holding the blankets. Seeing the mother and daughter curled up in a ball on the sofa, he couldn't help smiling. "Uncle Simon, save me." Serenity called for help, giggling and rolling toward him. Simon scooped her up. "What did you say to make Mommy angry?" he asked. Serenity whispered something in his ear. Simon's smile became visibly radiant. He looked at Cecilia, drawling meaningfully. "So that's how it is." Cecilia got up, glaring at the precocious Serenity without much threat. She reached out. "Get down. Mommy will take you to wash up." "Okay, Mommy." Serenity immediately got down from Simon's arms to hold Cecilia's hand. Cecilia washed Serenity clean first and sent her out before cleaning herself up. When she came out in pajamas, she found the big one and small one already lying under the blanket on the sofa. She raised an eyebrow. "Mommy, Uncle Simon said he's going to read me a bedtime story. You sleep on this side, okay?" Serenity patted the empty right side. Simon lay on her left, holding a fairy tale book. Cecilia met Serenity's poor attempt at playing dumb, then looked at Simon, feigning innocence. After a while, she suddenly smiled and climbed up naturally from the right side, lying down. Serenity rolled into her arms. "I want to hear Snow White today, okay?" Simon opened the book. His voice was on the deeper side, gentle yet firm. Reading the story under the dim light, Cecilia felt very at peace listening. For the next few days, Simon would drive her and Serenity to kindergarten in the morning, then enter the company directly from the side entrance parking lot. Whether Beatrice did something or Cecilia hid well, she didn't run into Preston for half a month. The new product finally launched. Everyone in the department breathed a sigh of relief. Simon announced getting off work 2 hours early in the afternoon. He booked a restaurant for everyone to celebrate as team building. With the next 2 days off, the department cheered. Cecilia was happy too. Perhaps because a new life had begun, everything developing in a good direction. Or perhaps she was finally no longer unknown in the background, but could openly enjoy the fruits of her labor. Anyway, she was very happy. Being happy, she couldn't help drinking a bit too much. Later, when they went to the karaoke bar, Simon couldn't help stopping her, asking the waiter to switch her to juice. The department staff teased, "Mr. Summers, you're biased. Liu and Chi drank too much too. Why don't you manage them? When they go crazy, they're harder to handle than Cecilia." "Exactly, Mr. Summers. If you're so partial to Cecilia, our little darling Serenity will be jealous." Because Serenity came to the department often and was well-behaved and cute, everyone liked her. Dining out, they put her in the center. "I won't be jealous. Uncle Simon, do your best, Serenity, who was called out, sat in the center of the sofa with a fruit platter and snacks in front of her. Her innocent words made everyone laugh. Simon pushed away the people crowding around him. If you make her angry, I'll delay your salaries next month. Mr. Summers is so petty. Cecilia, get angry right now to show him. Cecilia was protected by Simon inside. Listening to everyone's teasing, she smiled without speaking. The atmosphere was just right for a few jokes. They weren't really staring at them. When everyone turned back to play, Simon turned his head and found Cecilia had poured herself a full glass of wine from somewhere. He was helpless. Cecilia, if you drink more, you'll be drunk. I'm happy. Cecilia looked at him, thinking this man managed so much, but she thought it wasn't annoying. So, if I get drunk, can you send me back? Simon was amused. Did you forget you live with me now? Cecilia didn't forget. She was just happy. It was 10 o'clock when the party broke up. Simon called cars for everyone in the department, finally supporting Cecilia out. Serenity also played happily today, skipping behind them humming a newly learned song. Just as the three left the KTV, a figure blocked their way. Cecilia. Preston frowned at the obviously drunk Cecilia, reaching out to pull her from Simon. Cecilia was drunk, but she hadn't lost consciousness. She threw off Preston's hand. What are you doing here? Watching Cecilia, who was smiling against Simon a second ago, turn cold instantly upon seeing him, rejecting him from 1,000 miles away, Preston felt his heart was like an overturned spice jar, mixed with all sorts of flavors. He still refused to believe that Cecilia had really abandoned their 5-year relationship just like that. Cecilia, have you really thought it through? To be strangers with me? Preston asked. Preston Sterling, if your brain isn't working, go register at the hospital. Do I look like I want to continue with you? Cecilia's tone held undisguised disgust. Where exactly was she not expressing clearly enough for him not to see she wanted nothing to do with him? Preston's heart felt cut by a knife. Then, what was the 5 years? You said you liked me, wanted to be with me. You pushed me away during the car accident, took care of me when I was sick. And Julian, we agreed to raise him well, let him take over the company when he grows up, and I'd accompany you to do what you wanted. Was all that fake? Asking at the end, Preston's emotions were uncontrollable, almost shouting. Cecilia patted Simon's hand on her waist, signaling him to let go. She stood straight, staring at Preston's face that she once liked very much. Listening to his questioning, she felt those things she once thought she couldn't let go of, the most sincere things, were just so-so. Does a promise have to be kept? Cecilia's light sentence defeated Preston completely. Cecilia, I really know I was wrong. I'm the one who broke my word. I broke it first. You can punish me however you want, okay? As long as you come back, I'll take you wherever I go in the future, putting you first in everything. Preston really didn't want to face the empty home without Cecilia. Without Cecilia, it couldn't be called a home, it was just a house. Cecilia remained unmoved. The contract has ended. Preston, everything was because of that contract, because of money. Don't be sentimental here. Also, call me by my full name. Cecilia, coming from him, sounded disgusting. I don't believe it. You must be lying to me. Cecilia, 5 whole years, not a bit of feeling. Preston reached out to pull her, his strength great. Cecilia raised her other hand and slapped him with almost all her strength. Preston was stunned by the slap, involuntarily loosening his grip. Are you awake? Do you need another slap to believe it? Cecilia looked at him coldly. Preston's ears were ringing. He looked incredulously at Cecilia in front of him. Was this the real her? The gentle and understanding Cecilia before him for 5 years was all an act. Preston's lips moved, but no sound came out. Mommy, can we go back? Serenity came forward to pull Cecilia. Let's go home. Cecilia looked at Preston no more. She took Serenity's hand and turned. Preston looked at this little girl, his mind suddenly clearing. He shouted at her, Serenity, Serenity, remember me? I'm Daddy. Before. Daddy, Mommy said we're going home. Preston's words were interrupted by Serenity's crisp shout. But this Daddy was calling Simon. Simon responded with a smile, bent down to pick up Serenity, took Cecilia, and walked away. The intimate backs of the three were like a knife stabbing fiercely into Preston's heart. He rushed across the road recklessly. Cecilia, how can you be so cruel? We agreed to adopt Serenity together. Why did you change the person in such a short time? Preston roared. You were the one who kept delaying the adoption paperwork with me. Preston, you have no right to question me about anything here. Preston didn't know how to explain. At that time, he was just too happy Lydia returned, thinking picking her up later would be fine too. Serenity, I am your daddy. I remember promising to buy you dolls. I'll take you to buy them tomorrow, okay? You aren't my daddy. My daddy bought me lots and lots of dolls long ago and reads me bedtime stories every night. He loves mommy very much and never does things that make mommy unhappy. You are a bad man. Every time you appear, you make mommy unhappy. Serenity finished speaking loudly and urged, Mommy, let's go home quickly. Don't talk to the bad man, okay? Back home, Cecilia sobered up mostly. She watched Simon coax Serenity to sleep, then sit down in front of her. If you're sad, cry it out. Simon poured her honey water and thoughtfully opened a new pack of tissues. Cecilia didn't want to cry, not worth it. She just wanted to ask, You told Serenity to change how she addresses you. Simon nodded. Couldn't stand him, but you wouldn't let me intervene, so I could only use this poor strategy. If you're unhappy, I won't let her call me that next time. What poor strategy? It was clearly striking at the heart. Serenity's sentence, Daddy never does things that make mommy unhappy, kept echoing in Cecilia's mind. She looked at the gentle and considerate Simon in front of her. You like it, she likes it too, so let her call you that. Simon didn't react for a moment. A few seconds later, holding Cecilia's hand, unable to suppress his joy like a young boy, he asked, Cecilia, you agreed? Meeting Simon's eyes that couldn't hide his joy, Cecilia nodded gently. Simon was excited all night. The next day, wearing dark circles under his eyes, he insisted on sending Serenity to school personally. Cecilia, worried about safety, forcibly pinned him down at home. Bye-bye, Mommy, bye-bye. Mommy will pick you up this afternoon. Cecilia squatted in front of Serenity, fixed her pigtails, and waved, watching her go in. Turning around, she heard Julian's aggrieved voice. You are my mom. How can you treat another kid as your child? Julian felt wronged to death and angry to death. Why, this was his mom alone. Cecilia looked up at Preston behind him. Is it interesting? Pestering shamelessly. Before Preston could answer, she laughed again, full of mockery. You didn't learn this trick from Lydia, did you? You got the essence. Cecilia, can we not mention her? I really have no contact with her anymore. Preston lowered his stance. I came to find you today to renew the contract. Not mentioning it meant pretending those things never happened. What a selfish thought. Preston handed over a contract. Inside are shares of Sterling Corp and fixed annual dividends. Cecilia, you say you love money. I give you all the money. Come back, okay? Even if it's fake affection, come back. I don't mind. I mind, Cecilia said. Where did he get the face to think his not minding was a favor? She had to accept it. Julian reached out to pull Cecilia. Mommy, come back. It's not fun at home without you. I really miss you. Cecilia avoided his extended hand. I gave you countless chances. You told me over and over that you wanted Auntie Lydia to be your mom. Even on your birthday, I, the mother who risked death to give birth to you, wasn't even allowed to cut a cake. Julian, I never owed you anything. My careful teaching for 5 years was enough. Our mother-son bond ended long ago. Don't call me Mom. I don't want that you are my mom. I was wrong. Forgive me, okay? I'll never talk back to you again. I'll listen to everything you say. Julian burst into tears. Cecilia didn't look down at him once. She took the contract Preston handed over, threw it into the trash can beside her, and amidst the man's stunned reaction, got in the car and drove away. Cecilia received a call from the teacher saying Serenity got into a fight at kindergarten and got hurt. Cecilia rushed over frantically, only to find standing in the office were none other than Preston and Julian. Mommy? Serenity had a small swelling on her forehead. The teacher was applying ice to it. Seeing her mom come in, she stepped forward with tears in her eyes. She is my mom, not yours. Your mom died long ago, Julian shouted aggressively from the side. Cecilia's anger rushed to her head almost instantly. She took 2 steps forward and slapped Julian. Keep your mouth clean. Serenity has manners and politeness. Everyone likes her. You, who no one likes, are the one without a mother. Cecilia really didn't want to use vicious words on a child, but she couldn't tolerate it. The child she once taught with care had now become this immoral person who bullied others out of jealousy. She grabbed Julian by the collar, dragged him to Serenity, and demanded forcefully, Apologize to Serenity, Julian cried messily, struggling blindly. I didn't say anything wrong, you are my mom, not her. She stole my mom and said I was wrong. It's clearly her fault. Cecilia let go of him in utter disappointment. Cecilia, Julian is still small. He's just scared lately that you don't want him, so hearing Serenity say, "Shut up, Preston." Cecilia was furious now. Her eyes were full of disgust. Your sterling blood is selfish and disgusting. I really regret keeping this child back then. I can ignore your repeated harassment, but you shouldn't have condoned Julian attacking Serenity. Preston, I'll see you in court. Cecilia finished speaking, bent down to pick up Serenity, touched her forehead, and coaxed her away. Preston stood blankly in place. How did things turn out like this? He just wanted Julian to spend more time with Serenity. If the siblings had a good relationship, it would naturally make Cecilia change her mind. Julian was still crying. He looked down at his son and felt nothing but annoyance. Cecilia confirmed Serenity wasn't seriously hurt and handed her to Simon. She dove into the study and didn't come out until midnight. Simon had been waiting outside. Seeing her still looking angry, he spoke heartily. Cecilia, let me do something. You taking care of Serenity is helping me. I have to do this myself. Cecilia didn't want to drag him in. Simon hugged her silently. An enterprise couldn't be clean from head to toe. In the past 5 years, Cecilia helped handle many company matters, especially after Lydia returned. Preston stayed in the company for less than 2 hours a day. The documents needing decisions were handled remotely by her. She wanted to cause trouble for Preston? Easy. Simon gave Cecilia a vacation, stopping her from working. He also tried to finish work quickly every day to come back and accompany her. He changed Serenity to a private kindergarten with a higher-level security system. Cecilia stopped rejecting Preston's calls. Only every time he called, it would end with him speechless. As for Julian, Preston sent him back to Beatrice. Even with constant trouble at the company, Preston refused to go back. He stayed in Riverton, vowing not to stop until he achieved his goal. Cecilia ignored him. But within 2 days, Simon's company was reported and forced to stop work for inspection. At the same time, rumors spread that she was promiscuous, seducing several men at once, giving birth to a child and throwing it away. Not just the company, but voices started in the residential area too. When Cecilia took Serenity to play in the small park, she always received strange looks from neighbors. Cecilia initially thought Preston did it, but it felt wrong. Preston wanted her back, not to freeze their relationship further. These rumors, Cecilia bought quite a few gifts and went to the property management office personally. Within 2 days, she learned the one spreading rumors was a woman. Based on the surveillance footage, even though the person used some disguise, Cecilia still recognized her as Lydia Lovelace. She took the surveillance to find Preston. Didn't you say you sent her abroad? Preston, how do you explain this? Preston saw the footage, and his face immediately turned bad. Seeing him stammering, Cecilia really felt how a person could do so many heart-deadening things. Since you can't bear to touch her, I'll handle it myself. She had already asked property management to collect evidence. How many years for rumor mongering again? She would definitely send Lydia in. Cecilia, listen to me. I really wanted to send her abroad, but on the way to the airport, she jumped out of the car and almost died so. Hearing the words "can't bear," Preston explained hurriedly. I really sent her away and never contacted her again. If you don't believe me, check my phone. I really didn't know she came back and did these things. Don't worry, I will definitely find her and give you justice. No need, I'll do it myself. Cecilia didn't want to listen to a single word. After she left, Preston dialed a number, asking furiously, "Didn't I tell you to watch Lydia and not let her leave the county? How the hell did you watch her?" After venting, he ordered, "Go find her for me right now." Cecilia didn't have much trouble finding Lydia. Property management took her money and paid extra attention to Lydia's figure. When she appeared again to spread rumors, they followed and cursed. After being cursed at, Lydia left satisfied, and they followed. It could be said they found her hideout very smoothly. Cecilia, how did you find me? Lydia was surprised seeing Cecilia, followed by hatred. If not for her, she would be Mrs. Sterling now, living a privileged life, not like a rat in the sewer here, having to sell herself to maintain a living, of course because you are stupid, so I caught you. Cecilia mocked. Don't worry, I won't let you off so easily this time. Rehabilitate well in prison from now on. Hearing this, Lydia tried to run. Cecilia blocked the door. Bitch, die, Lydia couldn't run, so that bit of survival instinct turned into anger, vented all at Cecilia. Cecilia was guarding against her. She grabbed her hair and smashed her against the wall. Does the pity act work? You bitch, you won't die well, Lydia's face twisted in pain, but Cecilia's grip was deadly strong. She felt her scalp was about to be torn off. Don't worry, you'll die before me. Cecilia checked her watch. Should be almost here, right? Cecilia, Preston's shout came from the corridor. Presty, save me, Cecilia wants to kill me. Hearing this, Lydia immediately started screaming. Cecilia, this voice was Simon's. Cecilia couldn't help getting distracted and looking back. Lydia seized the chance to escape her grip, rushed to the table, grabbed scissors, and charged at her again. Bitch, die, Cecilia, watch out, Preston blocked in front of her. The scissors stabbed into flesh and blood splattered out. Simon pulled Cecilia over, looking at her with lingering fear. I'm fine. Cecilia patted him soothingly. Looking at Preston, who blocked for her, she had no gratitude. If not for him, she wouldn't have given Lydia the chance to escape. In the end, it was his own karma. Lydia was detained for illegal rumor mongering, facing Cecilia's fully evidenced lawsuit. Plus intentional injury, she would stay in prison for at least 10 years. That stab wounded Preston's lung. He was hospitalized for 3 full months before coming out, a whole size thinner. He came out and went to find Cecilia. He said this was the last time he would look for her. Cecilia knew why. Because of his accident, Beatrice's health collapsed too. Between his mother and ex-wife, he had to make a choice. Preston was very guilty. He said if there was a next life, he would definitely cherish Cecilia. But Cecilia didn't care at all anymore. She was picking out wedding rings with Simon recently.